Welcome to this week's edition of Information Return Intelligence. I'm your host, Jason Dinesen. This is a fast-moving weekly podcast where we talk about all things related to 1099s and anything else in the information return world. So by now, we've passed the January 31st deadline for filing Form 1099 NEC. You might still have a 1099 miscellaneous left to file, or 1042S, or some other form with a later due date, but it's still a good time to take stock of your situation and see how can you make 2026 even better with information return reporting. So I have 5 things on my list. Number 1 is really the one thing, though. If there's only one thing that you get done, do this, and that is get W-9s. The W-9 is your best friend when it comes to information return reporting. It solves basically every problem you can think of when it comes to 1099s. And so there's no reason not to get a W-9 from your vendor. Hopefully, a lot of you who are listening to or watching this podcast are getting W-9s. But if you're not, get W-9s. And even if you are getting W-9s, think about your process. Are there ways that you could make it more efficient and so forth? Number 2, recognize cloud transactions. So cloud transactions have been a problem for a long time, where we haven't known what to do with them, especially things like software as a service. Well, we now have regulations that the Treasury Department came out with in 2025 that say cloud transactions are almost always the provision of a service. Now, there's lots of different transactions that could fall under the heading of a cloud transaction, but a common one that you'll encounter is software as a service. And so we've talked about this in other episodes. You might need to send a 1099 to your SaaS provider, or at least get a W-9 from them. And if your SaaS vendor is a foreign company, then it makes things a lot more complicated for you. So just be aware of cloud transaction reporting and get your applicable party involved on deciding how you're going to stay in compliance with the rules. Number 3, review your e-filing process. A lot of you are probably subject to the e-file mandate, so you're already electronically filing. But look at your system, and are you happy with what you're doing? If you're using a third-party vendor, you might be happy with them, or you might not be. It's a good time to explore your options. If you're doing things in-house, that means you're using either Iris or Fire. The IRS's plan is to shut Fire down at the end of this year. So if you plan to keep doing it in-house, it would behoove you to look at Iris and learn about Iris. Or maybe it's time to partner with a vendor. Number 4, state filings. State filings are always something that comes up as an issue. And it's something that I find very difficult to talk about because, we say there's 50 different states, 50 different rules. That's kind of true with this. There's 39 different states plus Washington, D.C., which potentially want you to file 1099s with them. And the rules are always changing, and the rules are different from state to state. So there's really 2 things that I would do to try to stay on top of this. Look at your contractors, because a lot of times it's going to be contract labor that we're talking about. Where are your contractors located? It's not where your business is located, it's where when they're working for you. And look at the rules in that state that your contractor is located in. So what I would do is take stock of where your contractors are, and then throughout the year, you don't have to do it all the time, but a few times a year, go out to the Department of Revenue websites in those states and see what they're saying about the filing of 1099s. And then number 5, just in general, look at your procedures. If you have written procedures already for the information return process, review them and see if there are weak points. What worked and what didn't this past filing season, and what do you need to change and strengthen things? If you don't have procedures in writing, I strongly recommend that you get procedures in writing, not just to help your own internal purposes, but it also helps you if you get audited, because one of the ways of getting out of IRS penalties is what's called reasonable cause. And a good way of showing reasonable cause is to show that you have procedures and you follow those procedures. So if you don't have your information return process in writing, get it in writing. So, any time really is a good time to think about your 1099 process. As the cliche goes, it's never too late. But now is a really good time to do it because you've just come through filing your forms and it's fresh in your mind. Plus, it's early enough in 2026 that you can get on top of issues and make changes now so that the rest of the year is strong when it comes to information return reporting, and next filing season goes even smoother. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Information Return Intelligence. I'm Jason Dinesen, and we'll see you again next week.